Have you ever wondered why so many men over 50 and 60 suddenly walk away from relationships? And when you ask them if they miss having a girlfriend, they just smile quietly and say, "No, not at all. I've never been more at peace." Why does a man reach a certain age and realize that silence feels better than drama, that solitude feels better than chaos, and that peace feels better than companionship that costs too much of his soul? Why is it that a man in New York sitting alone on a park bench, a man in London drinking his morning tea, a man in Sydney walking by the ocean, a man in Toronto closing his apartment door behind him, all come to the same conclusion, that life becomes simpler, lighter, calmer, the moment he stops trying to emotionally manage another person? Why do countless men in their later years suddenly choose a life of complete emotional independence and never look back, never regret it, never miss what they left behind? Is it loneliness? Is it fear? Is it bitterness? Or is it something society never talks about? Something deeper, something older, something every man eventually realizes once he's lived long enough, loved deeply enough, and been hurt severely enough. Today, I'm going to tell you the stoic truth behind it. Not the polished version that people post on social media, not the relationship advice that influencers repeat for views, but the quiet, raw, unfiltered truth that older men understand only after they've walked through decades of emotional storms. This is a comprehensive guide to 5 reasons to never have a girlfriend after 50 and 60, Stoicism edition. And I promise you this, by the time you reach the end of this video, you won't see solitude the same way again. You won't see independence the same way again. You won't see your own value the same way again. Because solitude is not loneliness. Solitude is wisdom. Solitude is power. Solitude is clarity. Solitude is the final stage of a man who has evolved beyond emotional chaos. And once you understand why older men choose this path, you might realize something surprising. It was never about avoiding women. It was about finding themselves. Reason 1, a man over 50 has finally found his peace. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how a man in his 20s treats chaos like oxygen, but a man in his 50s treats chaos like poison? When you're young, noise feels exciting. You think unpredictability is passion. You think dramatic arguments mean someone cares. You think emotional swings are signs of love. You believe the highs and lows make the relationship real. But after 50, your soul knows better. When a man has lived long enough, really lived, something in him changes. Not suddenly, but slowly, like a river carving its way into stone. You go through heartbreaks that reshape you. You experience betrayals that bruise your trust. You survive divorces that tear your identity apart. You endure responsibilities that crush you deeper than anyone will ever know. You face financial pressure, emotional fatigue, and the heavy, quiet loneliness that comes from being the strong one your whole life. And after all of that, your spirit becomes sharper, cleaner, quieter. Noise no longer excites you. It drains you. Drama no longer attracts you. It repels you. You no longer look for a woman who stimulates your emotions like fireworks. You look for peace or nothing at all. Because by 50, you've learned that not all companionship is good companionship. Not all attention is healthy attention. Not all relationships are worth the cost. It takes decades for a man to realize this. A peaceful life alone is better than a chaotic life with someone. A man at 20 chases butterflies. A man at 50 protects the garden that the butterflies fly into. And that garden, your peace, your routines, your habits, your stability, took you half a century to build, half a lifetime to craft, half a lifetime to protect. This is why you hear older men say things young men don't understand. Like the man I met in London, Michael, 62 years old, single, calm, a presence so strong and quiet that the entire cafe felt softer when he walked in. I asked him if he ever wanted a girlfriend again. He didn't answer immediately. He took a gentle sip of his tea, looked out the window at the gray London sky, and then he said something I will never forget. "Son, I have fought wars you don't see. Peace is the only woman I answer to now." A younger man would think he was being dramatic, but an older man, and especially one over 50, understands exactly what he meant. Women rarely see the emotional weight men carry. Not because women don't care, but because they're not built to feel what men feel. Men carry silent battles. The pressure to provide, the fear of failing, the weight of responsibility, the burden of expectations, the pain of mistakes, the regret of opportunities missed, the exhaustion of being strong for everyone. Women experience emotions intensely, but men carry them quietly. This is why, after 50, most men are done with emotional storms, done with unnecessary arguments, done with mind games, done with instability, done with being drained. When a woman enters your life at this age, she enters a space that took you decades to build. Your mindset? That took years of failure. Your balance? That took years of rebuilding. Your rhythm? That took years of self-discipline. Your boundaries? That took years of saying yes to the wrong people. Your peace? That took your entire life to earn. Stoicism teaches, a man who guards his inner tranquility is richer than a man with gold. And when you are 50 or 60, this becomes more than a quote. It becomes a law you live by, because you know something younger men don't. Your time is limited. Your energy is finite. Your tolerance for drama is gone. Your patience for emotional storms is dead. Your desire to fix broken people is non-existent. When you're young, you tolerate chaos because you think you have unlimited time to recover. You think heartbreak is just another chapter. You think emotional damage heals faster. You think you'll always bounce back. But when you're older, you see time differently. You value it more. You protect it fiercely. You refuse to waste it on people who don't appreciate it. This is why so many men over 50 say, a girlfriend? No, I prefer peace. Because at this age, you finally understand something profound. Peace is not the absence of people. Peace is the absence of emotional damage. Peace is not loneliness. Peace is clarity. Peace is not emptiness. Peace is strength. After half a lifetime of noise, silence finally feels like home. Reason 2, you finally understand female psychology. There is a point in a man's life where he stops being confused by women and starts understanding them. This usually happens after 50. Before that age, most men spend their lives trying to figure out, why did she pull away? Why does she lose interest suddenly? Why does she say one thing but do another? Why does she love drama more than peace? Young men drown in these questions, but older men? They already know the answers. They've experienced enough heartbreak. They've been lied to, cheated on, ghosted, betrayed, manipulated, used, taken for granted, emotionally drained. They've given too much and received too little. By 50 or 60, a man becomes emotionally fluent. He sees patterns. He understands red flags instantly. He notices emotional inconsistencies. He understands feminine strategies, emotional tests, and psychological games. He learns that women want attention but not commitment, that they want emotional security but not responsibility, that they want to feel chosen, but they rarely choose back equally. A man over 50 knows this truth. Most modern relationships are not about love, they're about emotional survival. He knows that many women in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s come with emotional baggage, financial expectations, trust issues, and demands that can drain a man's resources, mentally, spiritually, and financially. At this age, a man doesn't want to be strong for her every day. He has been strong for everyone his whole life. He has carried families, responsibilities, jobs, careers, heartbreaks, burdens when he's tired. A girlfriend after 50 often brings more emotional responsibility than emotional reward. I met a man in Toronto named James. He was 58, successful, healthy, divorced, living alone. He said something I will never forget. I finally understand women, and that's exactly why I'm done with relationships. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't angry. He wasn't resentful. He was simply aware. Awareness changes everything. When you're young, you're blind. When you're older, your vision becomes clear. And once a man truly understands women, he stops chasing them. This is the second reason why many men over 50 say, a girlfriend? No thanks. I know better now. Reason 3, you finally control your time, money, and energy. There is a deep truth older men understand, something younger men rarely see, and something society never teaches. A relationship costs more than it gives, not emotionally, but in the 3 currencies that define a man's life after 50, time, money, and energy. And once you reach 50 or 60, these 3 things stop being resources and become treasures, because at that age you see life differently, not as something endless, but as something finite, limited, sacred. You don't want unnecessary arguments. You don't want emotional roller coasters. You don't want negotiation after negotiation just to make daily life functional. You don't want to debate every decision, compromise on every preference. or constantly bend your lifestyle to keep someone emotionally satisfied. At 50 plus, you start valuing your time the way a king values his kingdom. You realize that an hour wasted is an hour you never get back. And when you lose time at that age, it hurts. Your schedule matters. Your habits matter. Your peace matters. Your personal rhythm matters. And modern relationships, they don't care about any of that. They demand constant communication, daily texting, emotional presence, physical availability, weekend plans, financial spending, emotional reassurance, compromise after compromise after compromise. A man in his 20s or 30s can handle that. He has unlimited energy. He's still proving himself. He's still building himself. He still has something to chase. But a man in his 50s or 60s, he no longer serves time. He owns it. He wants to travel without asking permission. He wants to sleep without being judged. He wants to eat when he feels hungry, not when a schedule demands it. He wants silence when he desires silence. He wants space when he needs space. He wants routine, structure, stability, not emotional turbulence. At that age, freedom becomes oxygen, not a luxury, not a bonus, not a privilege, a necessity. I once met a 63-year-old man in Manchester named Daniel, a calm, intentional, peaceful man. He told me something I never forgot. At this age, my freedom is the only thing I refuse to negotiate. He explained that having a girlfriend would require constant time, investment he had zero interest in giving, dinner every weekend, phone calls every night, holiday planning, adjusting schedules, managing expectations, providing emotional stability for another person, being available even when he was mentally exhausted. And then he said something even deeper. I've worked my whole life to have the freedom I have now. Why would I give it away for someone who demands more than she gives? And you know what? He was right. Because energy, especially emotional energy, becomes the most expensive asset a man possesses as he ages. At 20, you burn it without thinking. At 30, you push through exhaustion. At 40, you start choosing where to spend it. At 50, you conserve it. At 60, you protect it like it's life itself. And the truth is simple. A girlfriend requires emotional bandwidth that many older men simply don't have or don't want to spend. Stoicism teaches, guard your energy with discipline, for your energy is your life. After 50, your energy is sacred. Your peace is sacred. Your time is sacred. This is why many older men reach this conclusion, not from bitterness, but from wisdom. A girlfriend? She will cost me the only things I cannot afford to lose, my peace and my time. Reason 4, you no longer tolerate nonsense. One of the greatest advantages of age is something younger men rarely grasp. You stop caring about approval. You stop caring about what society thinks. You stop caring about being liked, admired, or chosen. You stop bending your life, your personality, your values, or your routines to fit someone else's expectations. A man after 50 has been through enough storms to finally understand the truth. His value is not determined by anyone else, not by his family, not by his peers, and certainly not by a woman. This is freedom. This is power. This is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and what you will accept and what you will refuse. You become self-defined. You no longer chase validation. You no longer tolerate chaos disguised as love. You no longer negotiate your peace for fleeting attention. A man in his 50s or 60s sees manipulation immediately. He doesn't have to guess. He doesn't need warnings. He recognizes it in tone, in energy, in subtle shifts in behavior. And here's the truth about older men. They don't tolerate disrespect. They don't tolerate immaturity. They don't tolerate mood swings. They don't tolerate dishonesty. They don't tolerate tests, games, or endless demands for attention. Younger men often put up with nonsense because they fear losing the woman. Older men, they fear losing something far more precious, their peace, their stability, their sanity. By the time a man reaches his 50s, he has already learned this simple truth. A peaceful life alone is better than a stressful life with someone. Women, naturally or unintentionally, test men emotionally. They do it in subtle ways, a tone of voice, a delayed text, a sudden change of mood. And younger men, still hungry for approval, take the tests. They bend, they argue, they chase. They justify themselves, they apologize, they lose themselves in the process. Older men, they don't have the patience for this anymore. They won't argue over small things. They won't explain themselves for validation. They won't chase attention that doesn't come naturally. They simply choose to step away from the storm. I met a man from Sydney named Richard. He had been through 2 divorces and countless relationships that drained him emotionally. When I asked him why he was single now, he said something unforgettable. At this age, I don't argue. I don't explain. I don't chase. If a woman brings peace, I welcome. If she brings stress, we goodbye. And that is the mindset of men over 50 and 60. It's not bitterness. It's not fear. It's experience. It's wisdom carved from decades of emotional battles, sacrifices, and lessons learned the hard way. Most women, even unintentionally, bring complexity into a man's life. They bring unpredictability, expectations, and emotional waves. And older men, they've realized they don't need this anymore. Stoicism teaches, a man at peace becomes a threat to those who thrive on chaos. Older men are no longer defined by drama. They don't need chaos. They don't need emotional storms. They don't need to constantly prove themselves, explain themselves, or negotiate their worth. What they crave instead is simple. Simplicity, silence, stability, predictability, emotional calmness. And here's the hard truth. Most modern relationships do not offer these things anymore. The games, the tests, the fluctuations, the expectations, they cost too much. And for men who have spent decades fighting for their careers, families, health, and emotional stability, the price is no longer worth paying. This is why so many older men say with quiet certainty, a girlfriend? I'll pass. My peace is too expensive. Because after 50, after 60, after decades of learning and surviving, a man finally realizes that peace is priceless, and chaos is a luxury he can no longer afford. Reason 5. You finally realize you don't need a woman to feel complete. The final may be the most powerful reason men over 50 and 60 avoid girlfriends is this. They finally realize they are complete alone. Society lies to younger men. It tells them, you need a woman to feel loved. You need a relationship to be whole. You need romance to prove your worth. You need someone to avoid loneliness. And many men waste decades chasing love, approval, validation, and emotional comfort. But after 50, something shifts. A man begins to enjoy his own company. He enjoys eating alone. He enjoys traveling alone. He enjoys walking alone. He enjoys silence more than noise. He enjoys being responsible only for himself. He becomes emotionally self-sufficient. He realizes he doesn't need validation. He doesn't need constant attention. He doesn't need affection to feel worthy. He doesn't need a partner to enjoy life. He doesn't need romantic excitement to feel alive. He realizes, I am enough. Men at this age often begin rediscovering their passions. Golf, reading, traveling, writing, building businesses, volunteering, fitness, meditation, nature, music. They start connecting with life instead of connecting with someone who drains them. Stoicism teaches, a man who masters solitude becomes unbreakable. You finally understand that companionship is optional, but peace is essential. You finally understand that love is beautiful, but inner peace is divine. You finally understand that validation is temporary, but self-respect is eternal. This is why so many men at 50 and 60 step into a new kind of life. A life where they choose themselves, not because they're bitter, not because they're hurt, not because they gave up, but because they finally woke up. They finally understand that the richest relationship a man can ever have is the relationship he has with himself. The final message. A girlfriend after 50 or 60 isn't always wrong, but it must never come at the cost of your peace, your stability, your freedom, or your self-respect. Because something happens to a man as he grows older. He stops chasing noise. He stops running after validation. He stops bending himself into shapes to be accepted. He starts valuing a quieter kind of life. A life where his mind is calm, his heart is steady, and his purpose is clear. Many men discover that the older they get, the more they finally understand that solitude isn't loneliness. It's clarity. It's alignment. It's knowing who you are without the world telling you what to be. At 20, you want excitement. At 30, you want connection. At 40, you want stability. But after 50, you want peace. You want simplicity. You want consistency. You want a life where your energy is invested wisely, not wasted recklessly. So no, you're not avoiding relationships. You're not bitter. You're not afraid. You're not giving up. You're simply choosing with a wiser mind. You're choosing with a calmer heart. You're choosing with the knowledge carved from decades of experience. You're choosing yourself, your health, your financial stability, your emotional balance, your purpose, your time, the most sacred currency you have left. You're choosing the kind of life where you sleep peacefully, wake up without chaos, move through your day without drama, and build a world that reflects your values, not someone else's demands. You're choosing peace, because peace is priceless. You're choosing freedom, because freedom is the final luxury a man earns with age. You're choosing wisdom, because wisdom teaches you that not every connection is worth your spirit. You're choosing the stoic path, the path of a man who knows that true strength is found not in how much he holds onto, but in how much he refuses to let disturb his inner world. And that is the most masculine, most powerful, most self-respecting choice a man can ever make. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.